Okay, Miriam is here. Yay, I'm so excited.
Hey,
Um,
Kiara.
Hi Miriam. People are still like funneling in.
Okay.
I guess we can do intros.
Okay.
So, I'll have you introduce yourself first and then I'll go second.
All right. No worries. Hello, everyone. I have no idea who's on, so I can only see you. So, my name is Mariam. I go by Mariam the Ugandan on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, everywhere. And I got thrust into the limelight of advocacy work and activism work lately, mostly raising awareness and educational content for the genocide that's happening in Palestine right now, but then also regarding all the other injustices that span across the African continent. So that's who I am, a little bit of what I do. Just maybe a little bit more background. I was born and raised in Uganda, and I lived there, grew up there until I was about 19 when I moved to the States. I lived in Texas, Houston, Texas, where I went to school at a small HBCU called Texas Southern University. Go Tigers. And then I lived in Indiana for about 4.5 years, bounced a little bit around the world before I came to England. So I live in Birmingham, England right now. And that's me.
Thank you so much, Miriam, for introducing yourself.
Of course.
Um, what a journey you've been on, first and foremost.
Yeah. Not at all like I planned or expected for my own life. So yeah, it's been quite the journey.
Okay, yeah, so about me, everyone. I'm Kiara, I'm your host today. Well, I'm your moderator, actually. Miriam's your host today. Um, this is my first webinar with Seeding Sovereignty, so I'm really excited. There will be a Q&A portion at the end, and this will be recorded and shared um, for people who are watching later and who weren't able to make it. So I will let Miriam start off.
All
Can
right.
you can share your screen, I
I
think. Yeah.
should be able to. Yeah. Okay. So just a little bit of background, guys. I work in the STEM field. I'm an engineering project manager, so I do a lot of work in terms of presentation. So part of my webinar today was me creating a presentation for all of you. So please bear with me, and they're just a few slides, but I will talk through them. Most of these questions that you might have will be answered as we go along. And then towards the end, of course, I'll be free to take any questions that you have. So without further ado, let me share my screen. Please let me know when you can see it.
You're good, I can see.
Okay, excellent. Oops, hold on. Sorry, that just did something very weird. I didn't mean to share on the other screen. Give me a second. Let me just fix this, okay? Um, all right. So you should be seeing the full presentation mode, hopefully.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So my presentation that I wanted to focus on today was basically the impact of our overconsumption and our basically need for more and more and more, and how that has sadly impacted well, my home continent and all our home continents by extension. So I titled this Our Soft Life is Killing Africa because I think it's very apt and it's very to the point. And the next few slides will just speak about exactly what it is that I mean. So please let me know if it's going along as planned. Um, so in October, we saw the outbreak of what has been a catastrophe unfolding in Gaza in Palestine. And because of that, I'd been aware of this conflict for I think almost a decade, and the injustice that was happening in there for almost over a decade. But it was in October when it just hit a different level than I had ever seen and than anyone had ever seen, and that threw me into the spotlight of being more outspoken about it and just being a little bit braver in putting myself out there. And because of that, I remember seeing on TikTok people were like, talk more about Sudan, talk more about Congo, talk more about all these other African conflicts. Now I do have to be honest that even though I grew up in Africa, it's quite a huge huge continent. I don't know how to explain it. And we kind of get siloed in our little countries because we all have our own issues that we're dealing with. So it's not often that you hear about what's happening everywhere else. And as much as I grew up there and I've been there, I do still have a strong connection and strong presence there. I was, for the most part, oblivious about how much war was happening and how much destruction was happening in Congo or in Sudan. So with the Palestine genocide ongoing, I just dove into that to see more about what's happening in Sudan and what's happening in Congo. And I've met so many people along the journey who have given me firsthand experiences and firsthand accounts of how their own lives have been affected and how they've been displaced and how they've lost everything that they worked for decades for. And just a few quick figures at the bottom there. On the left side, we have some numbers on the war in Sudan. So a little bit of background on this. Sudan has always been a little bit turbulent, but in 2023, last year, there was a war that broke out between the RSF and I forget the name of the acronym of the other militant group. So far, we have 5.4 million Sudanese who have been displaced. We have 17.7 million who are suffering from acute hunger, and 19 million children have been out of school. And the economy has declined by 12% in less than a year since the war started. The one on the right side, which is more deadly and more insidious, is the silent genocide in Congo, which has been going on since the 1990s. And over that time, we've had over 6 million people killed. Over half of those are children. These numbers are just actually, they're mind-blowing. Once I researched them and I went into them, this was just horrific to find out. We have over 5.7 million Congolese who are displaced within the DRC, and we have at least 1 million, or approximately a million, who are fled to neighboring countries. And we also have, unfortunately, the highest number of sexual assault as a result of conflict that happens in Congo today. So these numbers were just, it was jarring to me to find out all this information. But it also made me ask myself, if I didn't know that these two were happening and they're right next to my home, what else don't I know? So I went on a research journey. And I wanted to find out what's driving these wars exactly. And is there any US involvement? I knew the answer already, but I didn't want to go off of my own like preconceived notions. I wanted to actually find out on my own and just kind of verify this. So these two maps that I'm showing, we're going to dive into them over the next couple of slides, but the one on the left just shows active combat zones in Africa, and there are eight, I believe, 7 or 8 of them. And on the right side, we have a graph which shows basically the critical minerals and elements that are needed by the world for the next 20 years. And we're just going to go into those a little bit more, and all my research led me to this point. So for the conflicts tracker, this is maintained by the Council of Foreign Relations. It's a US website. All of this is public. Oh, by the way, all the links, all the presentation material will be shared with everyone on the call and everyone who watches this after. So you don't have to memorize anything. So there are 7 active conflict zones in Africa. And I was wondering what started all these conflicts. And because I was thinking, okay, US is involved in this capitalism here, what are the areas of interest and what are the resources? What is there to gain from being involved in all these wars? In each and every single one of those countries, there is something critical that America and the EU and all the other capitalistic nations need. So in Libya, of course, and this was a known fact for those of us who grew up there and who have been aware, Libya was one of the richest countries in Africa when Gaddafi was still alive. They have the largest oil reserves on the continent. And before the invasion of Libya by America, they were pumping out 1.7 million barrels of oil every single day. Every single day. There was nothing like it on the continent. Sudan has large resources of oil, gas, gold and silver, copper, which is very important. So every element and resource I've put in bold here, we're going to jump into in the next few slides. The Sahel, which is an area which is between the Sahara and sub-Saharan Africa, is also going through conflict. In this case, we're looking at the intersection of 4 countries: Cameroon, Chad, Niger, and Nigeria. And there's a lot going on there. There's oil, there's uranium, gold, silver, tin, all these different minerals. And then, of course, there's oil. At least 34 million barrels in the oil reserves that we know of in that area. Central African Republic is also very rich: diamonds, copper, graphite, petroleum, of course, which is oil. Ethiopia and Somalia are unique in that they don't really have too many resources per se. There's not much you can export from there that you won't get elsewhere in the continent. But what they do have is access. So Ethiopia, this was fascinating to me. Ethiopia was the one country that wasn't colonized on the continent. It remained independent throughout the 80s and the entire scramble for Africa. But what happened was, after World War II, when America was starting to get into the picture as a superpower, it put itself in a place where it wanted a partner to start its ventures in Africa. And that's where Ethiopia came in, because it was, by all accounts, a blank slate. And they were like, okay, they have no history with the British or the Italian, or the Spanish, or anyone. We'll go with these guys. And since then, the US has been hand in hand in Ethiopia's struggles to conquer and dominate and expand its borders, like to Eritrea, to Somalia, all the different wars that are in that area that are instigated or are led by Ethiopia are supported by America, which is quite tragic, but I didn't know this. And then for Somalia does not have too many resources to speak of, but what it does have is access to the Arabian Gulf. And that area is of critical importance to America. So Somalia ends up being the staging ground for all the US Navy ships and US barracks and soldiers and everything. And of course, this is where they have the designated terrorist group, the Al-Shabaab, there in Somalia. And I'm still trying to find out more about this. By the way, there are terrorist groups in all these countries, designated terrorist groups in all these countries that I'm mentioning here. South Sudan, again, very, 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 very rich in oil and natural gas, at least 3 trillion cubic feet, gold, silver, copper, iron, all the good stuff. And then DRC is the jackpot of all jackpots on this continent, on this planet, actually. Everything that we need to fuel our resources, to fuel our lifestyles, everything that we could ever want comes from the DRC. Copper, of course, cobalt, coltan, which everyone is talking about nowadays, diamonds, tungsten, everything and anything is found in the DRC. And it has been, what do I say? We've had powers crumbling over it ever since colonial times with that king of Belgium, Leopold, who was just one of the most horrific people to ever walk the face of this earth. And sadly, DRC is also, because of all the interest of foreign powers, there's a lot of war, which is why it has not been stable almost throughout my entire lifetime. All right, so I gave you a rundown of all the different elements and the minerals that we get in Africa on the last slide. But on this slide, you may ask, okay, well, how does this concern me? Why does this even matter to me? Oil is the first thing that we'll talk about. Oil is in everything and anything we use today. Even if we were to stop using fossil fuels to power our cars and we all went green tomorrow, we would still need oil, because aside from fuel for all our transportation, we have it in all our personal skincare products, like my little lip balm, if you have lipstick, if you have petroleum jelly, if you have sunscreen, if you have anything, makeup, lotion, mascara, anything, it all has oil in it. All our electronics have an element of oil in there for the heat resistance and insulation. All medical supplies, anything, medicines, the actual tablets we take, and then devices, and then implants and everything. Oil is everywhere and anything, and not to even mention like plastics that we use. So this is one of the key minerals that drives our lives nowadays. Copper is the second one. That's very important. If you have an electronic gadget, it has copper in it. If it uses electricity, it has copper in it, so there's no escaping that one. Lithium became very popular in the last 40-ish years, where we had an uptick and the normalization of rechargeable products. So our phones, our laptops, our anything that uses batteries that we recharge uses lithium powered batteries. We always hear that word, so that's it. Nickel, cobalt, all all support lithium. So when you charge a device, you'll need to have to hold the charge somehow. So battery life, as we've seen over the last 20 years, iPhones technically get better with every generation of battery life. The longevity and energy density, how long they hold the charge, that's all been improved with almost each subsequent generation of electronics we have, simply because of nickel and cobalt and how they've found a way to make those work together. Rare earth, I'll be talking about in a few slides, but in short, you just need to know that they support all our gadgets. Every single gadget we have will have a rare earth mineral in it. And yeah, so this is an exact case study of how we all use all of these products every single day of our lives, at least. So with all of that, I was like, okay, so I kept digging and I was like, okay, somehow this has to go back to why exactly do they need all of this? Like, I understand in a big picture, but within the last 5 years, it's just been or at least I've just noticed a very, very high increase in foreign interest in Africa, even more than I remember being aware of when I was there. And it all comes down to this green revolution. Everyone is trying to move away from fossil fuels and go green and, save the planet and all this stuff. And it all means well. They all mean well. It's all well and good. But I think the one thing that's overlooked is this green revolution is going to kill my homeland one way or another, simply because all the minerals that they need to go green, there's going to be such a spike in the demand for them, and there already is. By 2024, at least, we're looking at 40 times more lithium being needed, 25 times more graphite, 20 times more nickel, 7 times more rare earth elements. And rare earth is a problem because there is no way to ethically and sustainably mine it. So you will need all these things we've been seeing, the tragic videos of Congo where we have children mining. This is what is needed for all these rare earth elements, and there are about 15 of them. So because of that, the Green Revolution, I don't say this lightly, is really going to kill Africa and so many Africans unless we find a way to stem it and to kind of guide it in a way that's ethical. Now we get to the second slide, the second map that I actually showed at the beginning. This was pulled from The Economist. They ran an article on how America plans to break China's grip on African minerals. So like I mentioned, for the Green Revolution and for the move to green, we need at least 50 critical elements. So copper, nickel, cobalt, lithium, then graphite, manganese, zinc, chromium, some other ones. And Africa is home to at least 30% of the mineral resources in the entire world. The others are in the Far East, which is like China, Russia, and those already have a very tense relationship with the US. So Africa becomes the one place where America needs to actually get its hands on Africa more than it already has. Yep.
I am not sure. Sorry, ignore me. Keep going. So sorry.
Oh, you sure?
Yeah. You're so fine. Keep going. Sorry.
Okay. So yes, so there is a new scramble for partitioning Africa, and now it's not going to be like back in colonial times where they're going to sit around and just send their armies to just, sweet talk the people in the land. Now it's very diplomatic, and it happens in the halls of the UN, and it happens in the halls of Congress and Senate and all these things. And you have lobby groups and you have committees that are formed around these things, which is what is currently happening and has been happening for at least the last 4 years since COVID hit. Actually, this is when this was identified as a critical need. The problem now is that China has been ahead of the curve of America, and China already has so many allies in Africa at the moment. So it's a bit of a race that America is trying to catch up with, and it's not looking too great at the moment. The next slide here just shows like 2 graphics that I put here just for a little bit of fun. The one on the left shows how far ahead China is in terms of getting all these rare earth minerals and how it's already made moves to become allies with so many African continents and so many African leaders there. So they're at the top of mining. I think, I forget the statistic, but they have one of the highest percentages of mining of either cobalt or nickel, or one of those two elements in China, processing it and then manufacturing. So they do everything. They are at the head of the supply chain in every sense of the word. So it's just now that America is trying to catch up, especially in terms of mining, which is where it's collaborating with African countries comes in. But even then, it has it's so far behind that there's almost no chance of it catching up now. And then Australia has trace minerals and, not trace, but much smaller quantities of these minerals that we need. The one on the right, that pie chart shows how many total reserves they are of most of these minerals. China is leading the way. It has a huge concentration of so many of these minerals just in the mining side, without even the processing or manufacturing. Then we have Vietnam, and then Brazil, Russia, and India coming up next. And then we all have Australia and some other smaller countries. This is important for me because I didn't actually understand the formation of BRIC or BRICS now. And I didn't understand too much why there was so much contesting between BRICS and NATO until I saw this graph, and I was like, well, now of course it makes sense, because NATO has been running the world for at least my entire lifetime. It's been the NATO states and those trade agreements and everything, and the G7 and all these power countries have been part of that. And now you have these emerging economies which came out of nowhere. Well, nowhere in quotes. They've always been there, but then when they decided to see that they can develop their own resources, they can mine their own resources, they can make their own coalition, they became a substantial threat to US, what do I want to say? Like the superpower status. By the way, I need to say that I'm not anti-US. It's just that this is all the research that I've done so far that just pointed me to this. So BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and then recently South Africa joined this organization as well. And they are trying to become kind of an equivalent to NATO, where they are for the emerging economies of the world, which have not gained that superpower status or traditional powerful status, and they want to have their own autonomy in the world and kind of make their own rules on how they govern their resources, how they trade, the strength of their currencies, and all this. So it's been quite fascinating to see how this is unfolding. And this was just a quick side note on everything. But I have one more slide here. So with all of this that I've shared, how we need to get all these minerals and resources, and how Africa is like the battleground right now for this, what can we do? Because we are each all part of this, whether we want to admit it or not. So individually, we have to make some changes. Then also there's a systemic level that has to be addressed. So individually is the easiest one to kind of tackle. The simplest thing is to just avoid overconsumption, which sounds so easy to say, but sadly, it's so easy to get in the state where you want. I'll give an example. Like I wear hijab, so if I like a hijab material, I'll get like 4 different colors, and then I'll get in another material and another color and everything. And before I know it, I have like 30 hijabs. I'm like, I don't even wear 10 of these or 15 of these. Like there's just no need. And so if we simplify our lives a little bit, that can help a lot. And this goes again with saving the environment. We see how much waste there is, and all these the trash sites, I forget what they're called, the landing sites for all this, the waste material that can't be recycled. It's just obscene actually how much we just use and use and use without caring about what the effects are either upstream before we get the material or downstream after. So that's a huge step we can take there. Also, the overconsumption comes in with gadgets. We have an obsession with having the latest model of everything. I need the latest iPhone. We'll be standing out in lines around the block. We'll need to get the biggest and best and the next big thing, whereas it's not necessary. I have a phone I've been using for over 5 years and it works just fine. I just need to kind of erase the memory once every year and just move my photos or videos to my hard drive, and my phone is still working perfectly fine. So if we can get into that state that it's really not that deep, you really don't need the latest iPhone. Like it's just not necessary. Um, I think that will go a long way in controlling how much we are contributing to overconsumption and to exploitation of people and of the countries that give us all these raw materials. The second one is what we're doing right now, just educating ourselves and then having conversations about this within our families, within people who are like-minded to us, within our friend circles, because change, as we've seen over the last 4 months, is in the hands of the people. So if I'm able to convince you or someone else that, hey, this is what's happening, and maybe we can do this, and we compound this change to more than one friend group, more than one family, and more than one community, then I think we can actually bring about a huge, huge, huge difference. The next step has to work with the first two. So systemically, there are some things we can do. We can demand audits from the supply chains of tech manufacturers. Going green has been a big thing where we're asking every industry. I don't know if you guys saw it, but Apple released an ad last year. Sometime I saw it on LinkedIn where they were like showing their global footprint. It was like Mother Earth is coming, and it was gosh, I forgot her name. I forget the actress's name, but she was there, and Tim Cook was just giving his speech about how Apple has improved its global footprint and all that. So if we put the same pressure on big tech to show us this, how they're doing this for their supply chain for these minerals and all these resources they're getting, this can be a powerful, powerful, powerful move that we can make to hold them accountable. The second one is, in times where lawsuits are filed, we need to pay attention to them and hold them accountable. I'm going to draw a parallel to what's happening in Palestine right now, because the world is awake and all eyes are on this country right now. There is almost no way that any kind of miscarriage of justice officially can happen. Like in the ICJ, we have thousands of us watching these trials every single day because we're like, you will not lie to people when you're in such a big stage. If we can put that same energy to what's happening on the African continent, like right now there's a lawsuit between Congo and big tech. If we have eyes on this would be incredible, and would be able to hold these companies accountable, make sure that they don't repeat this, make sure that there are actual consequences for them if we find out that this is happening. And the last one, this one is more to do for the Africans, and it's much harder to implement. I recognize this fully, but since we're dreaming big and we're saying what can we do on a systemic level, I would say we need to have an independent regulatory board within Africa, which will lay down the ground rules of how minerals will be exploited and mined and processed in the continent. There are some countries that are doing this independently. I think it's Zambia or Malawi, which decided they put down the rules for either the US or China, and they told them, if you want to mine our minerals, you're not going to just mine them and take them. You have to process them in this country and make sure that you're not just taking and taking and taking. You have to empower us as well. So if we were able to have an organization, we already have something like the African Union, which is the coalition of all African states. If we can have something like that for regulatory board, for regulation of mining, I fail to see how they would be able to take advantage of an entire continent that way. But this one has to be done from the Africans themselves. At this point, those of us who don't live there, we can only offer suggestions. But again, all change, all revolution has to come from the people themselves, which is quite difficult. And yeah, we'll just see how that goes. So that's the end of my presentation. I just kind of put all my sources here for all the information I've provided, the wars in Sudan, the wars in Congo, the conflict tracker, all the material I've gone over. This is it. And that's it.
Thank you, Miriam. I am so excited. Let's see if we can stop your screen share. There we go.
Yep.
And we're gonna see. Oops. I'm trying to like also get me up here.
Okay.
Where did I go?
I see you. I don't know if anyone else does, but I can see you.
Yeah. Oh, I just can't see myself, I guess. Okay. What the heck? Okay, yeah, I'm gone. Oh, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you so much for this presentation.
Thank
I
you.
I think it's definitely like it can serve as a really like powerful step one for our community.
Yeah.
And the call to actions you gave, I think that they're just so brilliant. Yes, overconsumption. When
Yeah.
you said, like you don't need the newest phone. I was like, you're
Yeah.
so right. I've had the iPhone 11 Pro Max forever, and I just got a new phone just to like separate work. But like
Yeah.
I've had it for like years and years, and I was never planning on upgrading it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, and I still have that phone. I'm still gonna use it. I'm still not
Yeah.
gonna, so yeah, that's a really important point to make, especially when us Americans, I feel like, generate so much waste.
Yeah.
We have a post about that very soon, people. So make sure you go look at it and see how much waste you're generating,
Yeah.
and how much more we need to pull back on, not just for ourselves and our planet, but also for Africa, for all these countries that are being exploited for the resources we use. Thank you, Miriam. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Um,
having me. Yeah.
let's see. Gonna leave some room for questions. Currently, there are none. So I
Okay.
don't know if good or bad.
Yeah. That's always like, did everyone get what I was talking about, or was I just talking to myself? I don't know. I
You
have no
know,
idea.
like, are there any questions? Oh, there's one question so far.
Okay.
Thank you for, oh, a lot of questions. Okay.
Okay.
No, there's just two. I'm like a lot, and there's only two. Okay. With China ahead of us, what is your intake on US invading or causing chaos in China?
Sorry, what was the first part? I didn't catch the first part quick.
It's okay. I'm so sorry if my connection is like poor.
That's fine.
With China ahead of us, what is your
Mm.
intake on US invading or causing chaos in China?
Oof. I
I
feel
mean,
like you need a political analyst for that question,
yeah, I'm like,
honestly.
I actually don't think America is going to invade China.
You know.
I also don't think that they're going to cause chaos in China. I think that they're going to continue like the US propaganda on what China is. Um,
Yeah.
that's just how they're just going to keep like
That's
throwing
what
out.
I think as well, because China has proven itself to be a formidable opponent that I don't think America was ready for. I think, and at least when I was there was this sense of American exceptionalism. It's still there where most people think, we're kind of great, no one is like us, there's no need for Americans, I've seen, to pay attention to the rest of the world and what's happening. And what that ended up creating was this um, very skewed sense of self-importance. I first realized that when I left and I went to India, and I was like, my goodness, yeah, this is nothing like they tell you it is in America. So I
Mhm.
think China was like that on the next level because it has been quite the opponent for for America. So I don't think it will invade. I don't think that they can afford to have a war in Israel, or in Palestine, and also in Ukraine and in China. It just makes no sense. Like, I just don't think it makes sense. Yeah. But
Yeah.
again, talk to a political analyst because this is just me
This
observing
is just like
things
an
from the
opinion.
outside. This is my
Um,
opinion. Yeah.
they also said, since the minerals are used in our daily lives, is there something directly that we can boycott?
Um, That's so interesting. I haven't seen anything about boycotting. The only thing I've seen has been that one case of Congo versus Big Tech, where they're
Yeah.
suing Tesla and Apple and everyone else. So I don't know if we can actually boycott.
I don't
That's a
think it's
good question.
I don't think it's possible to boycott what we're using.
Yeah,
Not that made no sense. Basically, in the terms of minerals, like I don't
yeah.
think it'll be like we'd be able to be like, oh, boycott this company that's mining for this mineral, because I just think it's such a resource that they're not gonna, like, we can boycott, but like I think that they're just gonna always find money to take that resource.
Yeah.
Like
Also, I think, yeah, sorry.
I think that
Yeah.
there's bigger powers at, like, I don't think we're funding these mining companies to go to Africa, or like to take advantage and exploit the resources
Mm,
in Africa. You know what I mean? Like I think they're being funded by bigger, like big tech is funding it. Like
yeah.
I think when you look at boycotting, they haven't called for, like, the communities affected haven't called for boycotting Apple yet, or boycotting
Yeah.
Tesla. So I think we just look at what they're saying. What do you think, Miriam?
I think so. I think that's always a good thing to just see, to follow the lead of whoever is affected. Now, I do have to say that with Congo and with Sudan, we're kind of a little bit behind the curve in terms of organization. Like Palestine has been going for at least 70 years, so they've been very, very strong in their advocacy and their organization. I think we could learn from them because they have their action items listed. I think if Sudan and Congo and maybe some of the other African countries were to come up with a list and they're like, these are the top people who are affecting our people, boycott them, then we can follow their lead.
Yeah.
I, however, am in no position to make that call. But I believe someone from like Friends of Congo or Keep Eyes on Sudan or some of those organizations, if they let us know how they want us to proceed, we can follow them and we're like, okay, we're here, let's go.
Yeah, I think, yeah, in terms of the actions that I'm seeing, those organizations put out, it's very much like they're trying to deal with their catastrophes one day at a time.
Yeah.
So I think for the organization, like you can't organize when you're like starving, when your people are starving, when they're like getting murdered. It's really hard. So like you said, the Palestinians have had years and years and years to.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, I
What I
guess something to
hoped
look at.
and what I wished, oh, sorry, I was gonna say what I hoped and what I wished, or what I wish would happen here is if there was like an alliance, like the BDS movement has been going on for at least a decade. And if we were to get someone from like Keep Eyes on Sudan, get someone from Friends of Congo, get them in touch with the BDS committee and tell them, hey, this this is where we are, we need help, can you help us like move, because we also want to move our causes forward and get that level of awareness and activism and organization for our causes. I feel like that would be so powerful, and this is where intersectionality would come into play, because then they can guide us and we don't have to start things from scratch. That would be I think that would be the best thing for us to do in this situation.
Yeah. Well, look, we got some solutions. I hope that the people listen. And then someone else said, thank you so much for this. We'll take these action items to heart and work on spreading them to friends and family too. Thank you so much. Thank you, Miriam. I think that this was just a really important presentation to have been had, especially with the current events going on in Congo and Sudan. So thank you. Thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for your intelligence. And thank you for attending. Thank you to everyone else who attended as well. Again, I will have these recordings to you if you want to review the materials. Also, Miriam will have a research sheet for you all that will be provided.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much.
Bye, everybody.
I'm going to do the millennial thing and take a photo first. Bye, guys.
So funny. Bye.